On stage.
There we are. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Apparently, we're backstage. I don't know if y'all heard that right
We're on
before, but
stage.
anyway, on
On
stage.
stage.
You're on stage. I thought you said backstage. What's going on? You're gonna have to forgive me. I'm gonna tell you guys straight up. I've been sick the last week, so my voice isn't what it normally is. It's a little bit difficult for me to talk. So Dylan's gonna do most of our chatting tonight. So he's ready to be chatty and have fun. Uh, but we're here anyway, and I'll be here in my limited, not talking and rambling quite as much. But we're happy to be back. I know it's the day after. Sometimes it's the same day, some day after. I kind of like doing it the day after because we can watch on our own time and take
I got
notes.
to watch it 3 times today.
Three
Like,
times.
able to fully digest and analyze every little bit of this
Analyze.
show. Just
Yeah.
analyze, yeah, no.
No.
But yeah, no. Fantastic. It was a great episode, full of a lot of just twists and turns. You didn't really know where it was gonna go, but a very good episode overall.
Yep, I agree. I had a lot of fun straight out the gate, and I found myself taking way more notes tonight than I normally do. But that because we talked beforehand, we were saying it was a really good episode, and then I said like lots to cover, and you're like not so much, but there's a lot of details within what
Yeah.
happened. A lot of details within what happened, even though there was only a couple different events to really
Yep.
cover, two or three. There's a lot to go hand in hand with those. So we got a lot to cover
You're
tonight.
more you're more the social guy as opposed to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the challenge guy. This
Right.
challenge was stupid easy. It
Yep.
was I have no notes about the challenge whatsoever. I have the winners, I have the losers, I have the runner-ups. That
Yep.
is it.
I'm
And so this one was more
I'm pretty
social.
close there.
Yeah. Very social game that was played right off the bat.
I'm pretty close there with you. Uh, there was a couple things that I took note of for the challenge. I do. Did you catch to see what the actual runtime was, like the finish time
Less
for
than
Cody?
15.
Less than
Less
15
than
minutes.
less than 15 minutes. They announced the 10-minute mark. And then they also announced the. No, I think that's all they announced. They only announced 5 minutes and 10 minutes, and then it was just boom, boom, boom. Everybody's gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. So it was. I didn't catch you the first few were. I don't normally try and notate. Who's like the order of the people or whatever, but
Yeah,
it did. It was very apparent to me after the first two or three that this really is one of the biggest like game of strength that there is,
yeah,
and we saw that. And people, not 100%, but people did tend to fall out. Not, and I genuinely wasn't thinking, oh, this order of people, but
yeah.
as people were coming down, I was like, this does kind of seem appropriate based on, strength overall.
Which we
But
had some shockers. We did have a
we
few
did
shockers, but we'll get into that as
get
we
into that,
go.
yeah.
But
Uh, I want to say before we get started with tonight's episode, I mean about it. I don't think we've actually gone over this particular topic. I went
okay,
over it a lot last season with Big Brother
okay,
because Big Brother did it for the first time last season, and I made a lot of comparisons to Survivor during that week
okay.
and referencing that week because they kind of took this right out of Survivor's book because Survivor's been doing this for at least the last two, if not the last four, maybe even longer, but at least the last two, where they will halfway after the merge or a few weeks after the merge, they will split the tribe up.
Okay.
And that's what we saw tonight. So we have the tribe split up, we have two immunities, which is fine,
Yep.
and then we have two different halves of the tribe. Now, before last season, a Big Brother, I every time they did this on Survivor, I hated it because, like I've always said, I'm a purist, and I hate. I sound so weird when I say that, but like I really like just the roots of the game
Yep.
and watching it go from there. But I also take note of game changes that become like a new game rule or a new game standard.
Yeah.
Like I can't remember
Shot in the dark.
Shot in the dark. Yes. Yeah, that is one where it's like, okay, that is kind of become more of a staple. We've only seen it for the past 2 seasons, but it does feel very, very much like it could be permanent.
Yeah.
And like I was gonna say, I don't remember what season it was that actually introduced the hidden immunity idols. Do you remember? It was really
Uh,
early, but I
it
know it
was
wasn't the first season.
before All Star, so I want to say like 6 or 7.
6 or 7. Okay,
Yeah.
so you have that mechanic that is lasted. So I initially hated the splitting the tribes up. At least the past 2 seasons. Do you remember if they've done it before season 40?
Oh
I
yeah.
can't. Yeah, okay,
Oh
because
yeah.
I'm pretty sure I've seen it several times. I
Yeah.
think before it was more sporadic, whereas now it's become more of a staple.
Yeah.
I initially hated it because I feel like you're really take like part of that social aspect is
Hmm.
being taken away, and it's again something that the players cannot account for. But I feel like once you get to a certain point and you continue to do the same twist over and over, there is like I understand that some of those twists they're gonna have to not be prepared going into that season expecting it.
Yeah.
But
I
after so long, I feel like it becomes a mechanic. So initially, I hated it, but I'm like, you know what? If they can foresee it going in and they know it's something they need to or they should expect going in, they should be preparing for it. And if they're not preparing for it, I think they're like I don't feel like we've heard anyone say, "Hey, we're probably gonna do a tribe split," and it's not
yeah.
like if they did say that the show's not gonna air it.
Right.
So I feel like we haven't heard anyone say, okay, we're going to do a tribe split. We need to strategize around that. Big Brother did it last season, and they had it was the same. It was 10. They had 5 people inside, 5 people living outside all week. And yeah, it was a thing. But there was a lot of talk going around about it. But they were the same way where but they were back there all week, so it wasn't just the one day, it was the whole
Right.
week where they were doing that. So they had a whole week where they could not commingle and strategize with each other. uh, the only difference with them, and I like Survivor's way of doing it better, is the first person that left that night was
Hmm.
not revealed to the second half of the group, and I that was the only thing that bugged me. But overall, I said I wasn't going to ramble, and here I'm rambling. But this is something that I mean, Crazy will probably vouch for me. I talked about a lot last season, and I've finally come around to it. I really like it now. How do you feel about that mechanic, just overall? I mean, because it is a pretty, it's very impactful.
So it's been around as far as that I can remember from China, which was honestly I can't remember the number, but I know it happened in China where they voted out two different people from two groups of five. That was I think the start of the mechanic. But honestly, this game is unpredictable, and I think that's what they're trying to establish with this is you can go in with the best game plan, the best everything. The game is always going to put you through the ringer. It's not going to always be so cut and dry, and they want to make sure that you are establishing bonds with everybody. You can't just ride the coattails of 7 people and make it all the way to the end because something like this happens where you end up with 3 people that aren't in your alliance. You're gone now. And so it's a mechanic that it very much allows Survivor to dictate the game, which I don't necessarily like. But honestly, it also is 100% random. If it was not random, the contestants would very much be outspoken about it, and that has never been a part of Survivor anything. There is no someone saying, "Oh, it's rigged from the very beginning." It's because Survivor is not. It is 100% random, and they're doing it to everybody. It's not like they're picking on one in
Well,
particular
yeah,
person.
the only thing, and I know it's kind of tedious, but I do want to point out is it's not no. There have been players that have said, "Oh yeah, it's rigged," and they've leaned into that. Same thing with Big Brother. That doesn't mean it is. Um, a lot of times people can go on there. I'm sorry, I'm like messing with my glasses trying to fix this. But a lot of times the contestants will go on these shows and they go in expecting complete freedom of how to operate the system. If they want to try and do something different, they're expected to just, they'll watch me do it. And they're not used to, they're not realizing that there is a production side. We don't, there are people every single time that they are doing their confessionals where they are talking with them and interviewing them. We don't hear any of that. We don't hear the voice behind the show. And so just because they're saying it's rigged doesn't mean it's rigged. It just means that they weren't expecting a full TV production to be behind it, and the hand that they had in it, they had no idea. It's tedious, but it's so frustrating to me because I hear that all the time. Survivor's rigged, Big Brother's rigged. It's not. It's not rigged at all. They might have some coercive questions where they're trying to allow you to open up and think about different possibilities without revealing stuff to you. Sometimes, and they're human, I mean, we want to think, okay, every single time they go in, they know everything that the player that they're talking to is not supposed to know, so they just avoid saying that. It's possible that they might say something and not realize the way it was worded initially. And so it's not rigged, but it is a production, so they're going to operate like a production. But these are,
and I did see
real.
I did actually see. I was watching Johnny Fairplay's podcast over, or not podcast, but his YouTube channel over the Survivor review, and he literally pointed out. He said when Carla got her Beware advantage, that the camera actually panned up to the actual advantage, and Carla looked right at production and then right at the advantage, and whether she knew it or not, production did somewhat help. But whether that is confirmed or not, it'll never be.
They'll never admit to it.
In the light of day, but
and I think there's a measure of it because I've always said, listen, we are, whether you have free antenna TV or you're paying for a YouTube subscription, whatever, we're all a customer consuming your product. So you have to be able to keep it. You have to be honest about it. Mm-hmm. You have to be held accountable when it's, I'm trying to think the right way to say it, but you're still being held responsible for the product you put out. You're still being held accountable. So if there are certain things that you're doing that you're hiding, it's going to make it a lot more sketchy when there's some bigger stuff that might actually not be what it looks like, but people are going to take it and run with it.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense. Anyway,
let's get into this
let's get into
We're already 13 minutes in and haven't said a word about it.
I know. That's your fault. You're supposed to shut me up. I'll let you steer. Let you take it from here.
Because honestly, like when we first got back, obviously Janine was voted out last week. Mm-hmm. Not that big of a game player, but she is the first member of our jury. We come back and Owen is pulling Sammy and Gabler aside and like, hey, I wasn't on the right side of the votes. I voted for Ryan. Who James told me I needed to vote for Ryan. That's who I thought was going home. What's going on here? And Sammy basically goes up to him and says, hey, I was told to leave you out of the vote, and I'm just doing what I'm told. Kind of showing that Sammy is kind of playing his cards a little close to the vest, not giving out all the information, even though, in my opinion, Sammy and Owen are in a pretty good alliance. What do you think?
I think so, and that's kind of something that I thought, not to give too much away, but later in the episode, watching them talk, I was like, I feel like this is a really good partnership for Sammy, because Owen really is like, Owen's not desperate in the sense that he's just going to do anything and everything regardless of whether or not it's good for his game, but he's going to do what is best for his game, and he's not going to let something outside of that, get in the way of that. He's going to do what's best for his game, and so I feel like right now he's on the outs. He doesn't have anyone. He's really kind of been in this position since the beginning, and I feel like at this point he's a loyal soldier. I mean, he's even said, with last week. We're talking about last week. They were talking about it tonight, but with him and James, and he's like, I will do what you want me to do. It's getting a little bit ahead, but he's frustrated about it because he's like, I will do what you want me to do. Just tell
Yep.
me where to vote.
Actually,
And
that did come up in this exact moment because James actually says, "Hey, Owen, do you want to have a conversation?" And he just flat out says, "No, I'm good. Like, I don't need to have a conversation with you." Owen was pissed.
he was. He was angry, and we'll see a little bit more resolution of that later on, which was cool because we could not have, and try not to get too far ahead, but there's another point about the James and Sammy dispute that I want to go over, but what kind of really I feel like made it visible and we saw it was later on, so I'm gonna wait till then to talk
Okay.
about it, even though it happened now.
Well,
But I want to
well,
wait till then to bring it up.
right after that, we got the Cassie montage, which
Yes.
was really nice, talking about her family, talking about her sister who unfortunately passed, and she
Mhm.
carries in her locket, and I really liked this. I was telling you that Cassie was gonna get some sort of montage if she makes it farther. This was the montage that kind of gets you. Is she has a locket, and in that locket has her sister's ashes.
Mhm.
And they showed clips throughout the season of whenever she starts a
Yep.
challenge, whenever she's about to finish a challenge, or whenever she's done with a challenge, whenever she's at tribal council, she always gives it a kiss. And that was something that finally it was in the appropriate space to here's a quick montage, here's the quick opening, let's get to the challenge, folks. And like it was
Mhm.
on the races from there. What did you
Yep.
think about Cassie's montage?
I liked it. I got to say, I did not, in any way, shape, or form, find humor in it. But whenever just watching you just say, she gives it a kiss, and like that was kind of funny. Anyway, it was just
Just
funny.
give it a kiss.
I know the way you said it. But no, I liked it. I've tried. I was very conscious when it came on to not pay too much attention to it because I knew that I would. I consciously knew if I bring it up, I'm going to talk more about the sappiness and rant
Yep.
about it, and I don't want to put myself in that position.
It
Uh,
genuinely it was the appropriate amount. Like
yes.
I like that every person that goes on the show has to have a story. Jeff wants them to have a heartfelt story. That's why we're getting a lot more less cutthroat games is because everybody is genuinely nice. They're
Hmm.
they're nice people in a cutthroat game. And so we're getting to see them and their characters a little bit more as we get through some of these montages. And unfortunately, when I saw that montage, I knew exactly what was happening.
Hmm.
Exactly what was happening next. But we get to the challenge, and Jeff lays it on everybody. Hey, we're going to split the tribes, like you were saying earlier. We're going to go 5 and 5, and we're going to split them up completely. Each person is going to have a immunity necklace. So 2 people are going to go into their individual tribal councils and be immune, which meaning 1 out of 4 people is going to go home from each tribal. Does that make sense? Did I say that correctly? Like it
Two,
makes
2 out of 4. No,
two.
1 out of 4. 1 out of 4 twice. Sorry.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
I thought you were trying to. I thought you're. Never mind.
I was never good
No,
at
you're
math.
good.
Anyway,
Neither am I. I'm a
anyway,
banker and I can't do math.
so they separate the teams, and it came out for Cody, Ryan, Cassie, Gabler, and Jesse on one side. They're going to be competing against Carla, Sammy, James, Owen, and Noel on the other side. And they were competing for peanut butter and jelly.
Yes, it was a DIY PB and J. Build your own. I didn't really like. I
I
heard
didn't
PB and
understand the
J.
stipulation there. Yeah,
I didn't. Well, the thing was with it. All I heard was PB and J,
yeah.
and I immediately just didn't even look, and I just looked down to catch up on my notes. I didn't even bother to look at it because I'm like, oh, it's PB and J. Who cares?
It's PB and
If it
J.
was,
Yeah.
yeah, if it was anything special, they would have said it, and I would have looked. But no, yeah. So I don't know if it was like, I assume it was some type of individual kits. I don't know if they had extras and fancy toppings or whatever. I don't know, but it was a DIY PB and J.
Hey,
Uh, and I feel like PB and J's are so underestimated. Like every time you have one that hits a spot, I would fight tooth and nail for like
what
a
are they?
supply of PB and J's out there.
They're at what? 18 days. 18 days without food, just eating on rice and
Hmm.
coconuts and
I didn't
like.
catch the day number. I've been trying to catch
I'm
those,
pretty
but
sure it's 18 or
18.
19. But genuinely, like I'd fight some people for some PB and J and day 18, day
Oh yeah.
19, not eating. Yeah, yeah, sure. So
So
anyway,
anyway,
we get into this challenge, very simple challenge. It's a test of endurance where you're literally holding up a ball and there's a little platform that I mean it's a little mesh net, and if your ball falls, it's very quick and you're out of the challenge. I didn't catch the order like you said. The big ones that I did notice was James. As soon as he got out, he was visibly upset
hmm
and said something to Jeff. Jeff kind of waved him off, like, get out of the way, kind of a thing. Gabler did. He was the second one out on his side. On one side, it was Carla, Sammy, and Owen that were the final three over there. And then on the other side, I didn't catch the third, but I did know it was Cody and Ryan in the final two there. Um, we start getting down a little bit further. Owen actually turns to Sammy and says, "Hey, I can't hold on any longer." And Sammy says, "I got you, bro. Like, no problem.
yeah.
I got you. I'll win this. No problem." Uh, Owen ends up falling out right after that. Do you have something to
Mhm.
add to that part?
No, I was just there's two things I gotta say. With James, I actually put in my notes. I said James acts like he lost unfairly. Like
Yeah,
he
yeah,
acted like it was the way it fell wasn't fair, and he
yeah.
was like annoyed at it. It's like you dropped it. Uh, that's all. And then with where was it? Yeah, I don't know. I feel like with tribal, it's so. I know you like you want to be care or with challenges you want to be careful trying to look like too big of a threat, but I don't know. Anytime someone tells me to drop, I don't care who it is, especially if I'm in Owen's position. I'm still gonna fight.
Oh, 100%. I really think it was a gameplay move by Sammy. I think he was trying
100%.
to. I don't think he was at all planning on helping Owen. I think it was strictly something to get Owen out. But like I said, that'll be something for a little bit later on. Um, so then Owen ends up dropping out. So then it comes down to Sammy and Carla on one side, and then Cody and Ryan on the other. And this one was out of nowhere. Sammy drops. And I mean, it was quick. Fantastic. Sammy drops. Carla wins.
Yeah.
And this was one where you had to compete with the other team as well
Yes.
to get the food. So she's freaking out. Oh my god, I
As soon
won!
as she starts, like I see the look on her face of like, I'm like, you gotta watch that. And
You
Jeff
better
calls her right
watch it.
out. He's like,
Yeah,
no, 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 stop. And
Jeff.
normally,
Jeff like March. She's like, you don't drop it.
yeah,
He got intense,
yeah.
intense.
If she had fallen at that point, by all means, it's on her. Or if like she
Yeah,
dropped at that point, by all means, it's on her. I do feel like it is so so much instinctive to like as soon as someone calls out you won and you're holding something heavy, it's such like an instinct to just drop it. I kind of wish they were like just ready on the spot
yeah,
because Jeff kind of waited a second after she had been moving for a second. He was like,
yeah,
"Oh, wait, hold your horses," instead of
yeah,
like, "Watch that."
yeah.
But
Well,
anyway, still,
honestly,
it still would have been on her. But I was like,
yeah.
give her a little bit extra. That's
Honestly,
what you
she
can ask.
lasted about another minute and then she ends up falling out, which ends up having Ryan and Cody on the other side. They've already won the food, so all this comes down to is who can last the longest for who's gonna not go home tonight, or
Mhm.
sorry, who's not gonna have the hidden immunity necklace around their neck. And so Ryan, who has been good in challenges but hasn't won anything yet, and Cody, who's been in the final three of every single challenge, I think actually final two of every challenge this season. I'm trying to remember now. Final two there. He's been in the final two of every challenge, individual challenge this season. He's been in the final two, ends up pulling it out and winning. And I love his celebration there because he's like, "This is the biggest stage. This is the biggest accomplishment that I've had in any sort of event
Mhm.
ever. This is my Super Bowl ring. I'm very
Oh yeah,
happy to hear
he
the
was over the
golden
moon.
monkey." He was over the moon with the golden monkey the necklace, which I
Yep.
absolutely loved. Anything to add about the challenge? Because genuinely, there wasn't. Like I said, there wasn't
No, I mean,
crazy.
yeah, I just have everything laid out the way it is. Uh, Once you kind of get to Sammy dropping, I kind of just took note from there. I did want to point out that, and if you said something about it, I missed it because I didn't hear it. How the red side went from almost immediately a 3-5 downside to a
Yes.
2-3.
Yep.
So they still kept that same ratio, and then both of them held out and took the other side out completely. So I just wanted to take note of that. That was pretty impressive in that type of challenge to hold back. Because as soon as the first two from red drop, you look over
Yep.
blue and you're like, well, blue's going to take this, and
Yep.
they didn't, and it was really impressive to see that. But yeah, that was really the only notes I took from that. I was trying to think. I don't know if you said it yet, but the losing tribe, or the losing side, went to the old Vesey Beach,
They
and he
did.
said you're not bringing your other stuff. Have you did you say something about that? Because I didn't hear you say anything.
No, 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 no.
Okay,
Go from there. Go from there.
so with that, I was gonna ask you. There's a couple points I was gonna say, but I was gonna ask you: did he say no rice as well, or did he
Yes.
say there is rice?
No, there is no rice. They
Okay,
didn't get any food, and they didn't get to go back to their normal camp. They went to a
right.
camp that has been abandoned for at least 6 days now.
Yeah, so that's what I thought he said no rice. I was pretty sure, but I mean, what isn't that big a deal? But the one thing I really, and again, I do think it kind of falls in line with this split twist to begin with, which is you should already be expecting it by now, or at least planning for it. Uh, but it still kind of bugs me that if they bury their stuff at their old camp, the tribe that's leaving
Hmm.
and going to the old Vesey camp can't still get it, like if they have any advantages or idols or stuff, because that is a
So I don't think that's actually the case anymore.
okay.
They did that in the first several seasons, but I have seen, and especially you actually saw it tonight, where the losing tribe of Noel, Owen, James, Sammy, and Carlo went to the losing tribe, and they still had idols, they still had advantages, and I'm sure they're burying those. I think they've just come to a conclusion that like if you have it, it's yours. And
Right,
so
but what
whether or
happens if they
not
get to tribal and they use it? Because if they bury it, because my thinking is if they bury it, just like we know, because we made a point to talk about it, and I even said at the time, I'm pretty sure we've seen it before. If someone steals something from you, then they get to keep it. So if it's buried, is it does it
I,
still
I
belong to that person, or is it free
I
game?
think I think so. I think it's still theirs
Okay.
because we haven't had anything buried and not like redug up, or we haven't had anything buried and
We've
like
not seen someone in this situation where they
right,
had their advantage at the old camp and used it at tribal. I
true.
just wonder. I feel like visually they wouldn't want that to play it. I feel like if that was the case, they would go have like a production member dig it up and bring it to them.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. That's what I think.
so
That's what I think personally happens.
and I could be crazy, but I feel like I've either heard someone say something like that before, like speculating. But I'm pretty sure I feel like I've heard someone like on production or something say that, or maybe a former
Oh,
castaway it's actually mentioned it. I don't know, but I feel like I'm actually pulling that from something, whether
okay.
it is or not. I'm not sure, but yeah, that was the only thing that I wasn't sure if he said they did get fit or not, but I was like, it still kind of bugs me that if they don't get to use it, but I'm trying to let go of some of those easy pet peeves. But anyway, so yeah, so they go back to camp, and I'll let you take it back from there.
Oh, do we have any chats? I'm actually looking over at my
Yeah,
phone. Do
so
we have
I keep trying to look and see, cut in without throwing you off. I don't know if we've said hi to Crazy Man in the chat yet. I know we at least
Hey, bud.
addressed him, but hey, Crazy. And Mona's here. Let's see. And they, no, so uh, Crazy was saying that everyone in Big Brother isn't nice. And that is kind of like you can tell in the way that the response to Big Brother is. throughout the season whenever there's like controversy and stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, they're not as nice. Whereas even the villains that we have in the modern era, and this actually is, I've thought about this before. It does kind of bug me, to be honest. They are like all of the villains, unless I'm just not thinking of one. We haven't had a good villain in a long time where they don't care what public perception is of them. They are going to do it. Like a lot of people go and saying, you know, I'd rather be hated by America and win the money. But when it comes down to it, they might mean that to a certain extent, but there's some things that people just are too afraid to be hated of or hated about, so they're scared to do it. And I feel
There,
like that does kind of hold back gameplay.
there are too
That's a
many
whole nother
people
discussion, though.
who have lost jobs, who have
Hmm.
lost just I mean that's a really hard thing to swallow, to not care about what
Yes, it is.
America thinks of you. Like that's a hard thing. It's hard to be a villain.
Oh
Like
yeah,
it flat out is
it
in a
is.
reality TV show, because they see you on the TV and they think that's his real life person. He's
Yeah.
being that mean, that malicious.
Well, and
And
when you
some
say it's hard to be a villain, I just want to say, like, with that, it's not like, because there's some villains that would go in there and just be ruthless, right?
yeah.
But there is a difference with in past seasons. I mean, even talking about someone like Russell Hantz, where he doesn't care what people's opinion is of him. If they want to hate me, they can hate me. But he also, what he is going to avoid is having his life ruined while he's there by things happening
Yeah.
based on that perception.
And that's the thing. Like Russell Hantz, my personal favorite player, he did everything he possibly could twice, back to back, and he, in my opinion, is someone who should be up there in the upper echelon of like best players ever to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
The unfortunate side of all of that is he lost his marriage, he
Yep.
lost his job, he lost his company. Like he literally lost everything because of this game. And it left a very sour taste in his mouth. And I mean, he has a weekly YouTube channel, and he airs all the dirty laundry. He does not think the game is what it should be
Who are you
anymore.
talking about, Russell or
Russell,
Johnny? Russell. Okay, yeah.
Russell. Yeah, no, Russell does not think the game
I
is
didn't
what it.
realize it. He lost his company.
Yeah,
He
no,
got divorced from it.
I like I said, I'm survival or survivor. Just I suck all the information out of everybody, and Russell is one of those people that I genuinely love the human being of the TV character.
Hmm.
Don't necessarily agree with anything he says now, but him on the Game of Survivor season 19, season 20, season 22,
Like
phenomenal play.
his takes on current seasons, you don't agree with some of those?
No, don't
Yeah,
agree.
I've stumbled upon his channel before. I've watched some stuff, and the few things that I did, like there were a couple like early on, because like in those situations, you run into these people that were really good, and you just are under the assumption that they're still as smart about it, or they still know as much.
Yeah.
They're still as good as they were before, and so if they say something that is kind of like maybe, you're still gonna lean on, yeah, I'll go with it. But I've seen his takes more and
Yep.
more have just kind of gotten a little bit off. But yeah, I mean, he really was, he revolutionized villainy on Survivor. And
He really
see,
did.
the thing
I go
for
ahead.
me, it was kind of weird for me because when I came into Survivor, and Survivor is one of those shows that you can literally pick it up in any season, especially because there's like two a year, and get into it. And after a couple episodes, you kind of get the gist of it and you can carry on. The first season I watched was Russell's last season, and that was the impression that I had of him, was this guy that talked a bunch of smack and had two girls, one on each arm, and left crying. That was my impression of him at first, because I was like, he's saying
So
he's defeated,
I'm gonna
but
stop you.
I
I'm
don't
gonna stop
really
you right there.
understand it.
I'm gonna stop you right there.
Yep.
Okay.
Go ahead.
That is a Survivor player with passion. Okay.
Hmm.
That season, he was
I've not
absolutely
rewatched that season since I
I'll
first watched it, so
spoiler.
I might completely have a different viewpoint of that. No.
spoiler warnings, okay? It was
Mhm.
Rob versus Russell season.
Yeah.
Okay? He got to make it to episode 3. And the reason is his team was up 2-0 on the other tribe, and the other tribe threw the challenge in order to get Russell Hantz out. If
Mhm.
Russell does not, if people do not know him before that season, he runs the table. Just just flat out, he does what he did in the last
Mhm.
2 seasons. He runs the table because he knows that game. He leaves crying, yes. That is a man who is passionate about that game. He says he put his heart and soul. I don't remember his exact words, but as he's leaving, he literally got somebody to admit to a hidden immunity idol from his own team. Like there was so much where he was literally Tom Brady to these little kids running around saying that they're the big cheese, and that was not the case at all. Russell is one of the best players, and I would put it literally he could come in tomorrow and I bet you he makes it to a final 3. That's how well that dude knows this game. We need to
With
clip this. We
with
need to
his
send it to Russell.
reputation, with his reputation as it stands, or with a clean slate,
Oh, um, mm,
because
that's
it's not
that's
an
the
either or.
That's the problem. He would have to come back. Not that he has a. I don't want to say he has a bad reputation in the game. He has a reputation of being a good player, but we have seen that if he could come back in a season where it is all returning players and they actually give him a chance. They actually give him a chance. Don't throw challenges just to get him out. He's too big of a villain. They need to do heroes versus villains too.
Hmm.
Put him with all villains again where everybody's a threat and let him do his thing. Russell Hantz wins that game.
I think if he's able to, and I don't know if I could give him the credit for it. We're getting way off topic again, but
We're
I'll
way off
just leave it
topic.
at way off
I'm
that. But I'll just
literally
leave it
gonna.
at this. I'll just leave it at this. I don't think he'd be able to, but if he'd be able to realize that early on in that scenario, he needs to lay low and try and show, because there are going to be some people that assume he's not the same guy he used to be. He's not going to be as good as he was, and let them underestimate him. I mean, he likes being underestimated, but also
Perfectly
being able
fine.
to stay low profile and stay
Yeah.
quiet early on and not force his opinion and try and influence stuff after you kind of get to that second act of the season, you could really
Yeah.
see him start taking off. I think that's where it could, but I do feel like it would definitely require a little bit of holding off early on for it to work. But
We're
yeah,
gonna we're gonna clip that and we're gonna send it to Russell and we're gonna see if he actually
yes.
responds.
Oh,
Like
and
straight up.
halfway through your speech, I was meaning to, I was waiting to clap because that was beautiful. We got to clip that speech. I'll find a way to do that. That'll be cool.
We're gonna send it to
So
him straight up
yeah, we'll send it
from the
to him
heart.
because that was beautiful. Anyway, where are we at? I literally
Uh,
don't know.
so we literally get back to the Vessi camp.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, back at
I,
Vessi.
I know exactly where to go from here. We get back to
Okay,
the Vessi camp, and it becomes abundantly clear that there are two choices. It is either going to be, oh, sorry, not the Vessi camp, the actual, the
main camp.
merge camp. And it's abundantly clear that it's going to be either Ryan or Cassie. And the nice thing about it, Cody's already got the hidden immunity necklace, and Cody's kind of going around seeing what everybody's thinking. Ryan says, "Hey, Cassie." Ryan talks to Gabler and says, "Hey, we got to figure out what's going on." Gabler says, "Okay, I'm going to tell Cassie that it's you. Our plan is to vote Cassie." They now go over to Cody and Jesse. They kind of figure out a little deal because Cody and Jesse, that's the main alliance. They got two hidden immunity idols between them, and they really do get to decide who's going home because Cody's already got the physical necklace around his
Hmm.
neck, and Jesse, like if you have two, it's not a guarantee that Jesse doesn't go home, but honestly, with Ryan and Cassie kind of swinging at each other, it was a foregone conclusion that one of them went home.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was kind of a little bit everywhere. I do feel like um, when we first heard from Cody coming back, uh, after they were eating and everything, uh, he was a little bit unsure. I kind of got that vibe from him, but yeah, they did not spend any time at all thinking about it. They were really stressing about it though.
Yep.
And what did I say? I gotta find it in here. Um, it's further up. Uh, it's somewhere in here. But basically, I'm like, they are. Oh, they're yeah. I was like, they are having an anxiety attack due to the amount of stress they are putting on themselves with this boat, because it's they're like, and Cody says it. He's like, we have to consider not just this vote right now tonight. We have to consider way further on down the line what it's going to look like, because every single option that we choose is a completely different set of scenarios that could go either way. And so
Yep.
they're like, we still have the ability to see who's voted out. And because we hear them talk a little bit about how uh, Carla and James were had an influence on what they decided to do with their vote. So they see that split up, and they're not as it helps them base their decision better. Okay, well, we only have one person that we're going to have to explain ourselves to, as opposed to two. So, and it really was cool watching how these groups were kind of forming the other side too with them. And because even Sammy, he's talking to Carla. I don't, we're getting that's a little bit further ahead. I feel like,
That's
are we?
fine. That's fine. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So
We'll blur it.
gotcha. So Cody and Jesse, they basically kind of are like, yeah, we're gonna do this. It takes them a while to come to that decision, but they do. And Sammy's talking to Carla because he's trying to let her know about what's going on with James. And Sammy right out the gate is like, listen, I don't want to mess with her too much. I don't want to upset her. I want her on my side, but I have got to make sure that, I mean, it really just does not make sense to not vote James out and to keep him. So he's still like, I still want to be on whatever side she chooses, but I'm going to very actively and politely tell her why this is what she's going to do.
Yeah.
And because he was talking about how, I'm not concerned. He was like, I'm not concerned about the response we're going to get from the other side. He's like, I think you're stressing about it more than you need to. I don't think it's that big a deal. And she actually agreed. She was like, you know what? Yeah, you're right. I think that, it's not going to be what she thought it was. But watching how they're concerned about not just forming their own groups within that, because it could be very easy for each side to come back and be like, okay, well, we're forming together based on this. We had to make this decision and basically have to come together under those circumstances. It's not just that. It's very much, how is this going to form the groups that I'm in over there, and what type of message are we sending? So again, like, I've really grown on this twist
Yeah.
because it really does have a ton of gameplay. One of the reasons I don't like a ton of advantages is because I'm like, you have a good cast that you had enough faith in them to bring them on national TV. Let them roam and let them play the game. And so I don't really like influential stuff too much,
Yeah.
but I think this is just enough of a push where it just kind of you just kind of scrambling the eggs a little bit.
Yeah. No,
Kind of shaking them
I
up. Just kind of
100%
shaking them
agree.
up.
I do want to add to that. You were touching on Noel's plan. Did you 100% talk about that Noel's plan with James?
I didn't, and I did notate
Okay.
that. I knew I skipped over something. I was kind of making another point, so
Okay.
maybe skip ahead. But
So that
the
was
thing,
that was
yeah,
a that was the good plan because genuinely it was brilliant. It really
it
was. It
was.
shows that she was actually playing the game, and I very much appreciate that. Noel had to steal a vote.
Oh, sorry.
And James had the other advantage that was the need to know advantage, to where he could steal a hidden immunity idol, he could steal whatever advantage that was in play. And Noel's brilliant idea was, I'm going to go tell James, hey, I'm going to steal Owen's vote so he doesn't even get a shot in the dark. I'm going to steal his vote. We're all going to vote Owen, and he's going home. Her actual plan was, I'm going to steal your vote. I'm then going to vote against James, and James is going to go home with a need to know advantage in his pocket. Brilliant gameplay. Absolutely loved it. And I kept going over this. That's the reason I had to watch this 3 times, like literally, specifically that spot, was because if I'm Owen, why is she telling me this? I know that she is on my side because 1000% she doesn't need to tell me this. She could just steal my vote. Game over. Like, there's no need for her to lie in this situation. And so the second that happens, I'm not even packing a bag. Like, obviously you do have to pack a bag for the
Right.
physical, playing up to James, making sure that he's not. We got some chats. I want to make sure that we touch on those
Oh,
before.
I'll grab some.
But to put on that show of like, hey, I'm possibly going home tonight. But they sold that to James very, very well, and then obviously that leads into tribal.
Yeah, so 100% I agree. I was very impressed as it because it was sneaky too, and I think she did it perfectly because, like I said, it was sneaky. Initially, she didn't let it completely change the way she did everything. She didn't let it overwhelm her. She didn't blurt it out. She waited. She was patient. I really want to know how much actual time it was from when they got back from tribal or like the challenge to when she actually brought that up because she came back and like you said, she started creating that plan, telling James that
Mm-hmm.
it was Owen in mind, and we see a whole kind of conversation pile on from that. We hear Carla because like we first hear Carla where she's like, uh, you know, I want James here. I don't, and it
Yep.
was kind of random misplaced. I mean, it was when she was talking about winning immunity, but she mentioned something along the lines of, I want to make sure James stays safe because he's part of my core. But it was like I did. It was that kind of foreshadowing. They didn't quite catch it first because that's when we kind of lead into the narrative of okay, we're gonna go with Owen, and then because you could tell the way production edited it, they loved it.
Yeah.
it let them tell the story the way they wanted to, but
Yep.
she let everyone kind of sit on that for a little bit and not look like you're causing panic, and then went and was like, okay, actually, here's what we're doing, and like you said, I mean, there's no other way to say it. It was brilliant.
Yeah.
I don't think she did. I don't think I could see a flaw in it at all because, and she was right. She's like, he's got that knowledge is power advantage, and there's something about that I want to talk about during tribal when we get to that part. I mean, we're getting close there, but she was very cognizant of that, and she was like, he's got this ability. I got to take this out while we still can. And you're talking
Yep.
about in the chats. Crazy Matt has a good point. He said they got rid of 2 advantages tonight and a social threat. Again, we're skipping ahead, but
Yep.
you guys already
Agreed.
know who was out. I
Mona
agree.
Mona did ask about Russell's company. He owned a oil company, and I don't know all the specifics around that, but I do know that he did end up losing the company. I don't know any of the specifics about it, but he does talk about it on his show.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'll definitely look into that. There's not a lot like I like to listen to interviews with players after the fact, but it's more to like gain insight and stuff. I don't take a whole lot of interest in them after, but I do occasionally if it's someone I really like, I'll go back and listen to some stuff. So I'll have to check it out and listen. But yeah, no, what Crazy was saying about they got the 2 advantages and a social threat. Is there anything else you wanted to cover before we get to? Because we already kind of talked about how James went out, but is there anything else you wanted to cover before we
No,
get to that point?
no, genuinely, no.
Okay.
Tribal was where we need to get to.
Yeah. So, is there any points from tribal you had?
Uh, I mean,
Anything that stood out that
just
you
who
want to talk
gets
about?
out.
Okay.
No, just
Well,
yeah.
I didn't know if you were anything from the discussion they had, but one thing. So, talking about a social threat, I don't know personally where James's social threat comes from because it's evident that it was there based on the way some of the other players talked about him. It wasn't very strong, but it was there. But I'm really curious as to like what the appeal is, what's drawing people to him so much, because whenever he talks about they get back into the conversation with him and Owen, and this is where it kind of I sewed everything together, and it was what I was talking about earlier. I was waiting till here to uh, discuss it. Was James actually saying that? Trying to get to it in my notes. Uh, James says that telling Owen that like the wrong name, and Owen actually fulfilling that was a form of trust. And I know as like once around this time before they called it out, I started to realize that might be what he was thinking when they first started talking about it tribal. And then he said that, and I was like, yeah, 100%. He was trying to give Owen a mission, or at least that's the way he's wording it. Whether or not it actually was what he was trying to do, or he was just in the moment kind of like, I don't trust this guy, so I'm just going to give him whatever. But even saying it after the fact, him trying to say, well, I was just giving him a test and I told him what name to write down because if everyone wrote, uh, 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 what is her name? Janine?
She's the most unforgettable
I
player
know.
on a jury. Janine, yes, that is
Yes.
correct, but I
Okay.
should not remember her name.
No. But whenever talking about voting her out, and a lot of people's gonna be putting her name down. So if you vote Ryan, then that tells me that you're on his side. I was sitting there listening to it, and I'm like, he's in my opinion, and I don't think that in general this is bad, but you have to be coming at the game from a certain perspective, and you have to be in a really good position to. He's trying to act like the Godfather, and he's like, "You come to me, I'm going to give you a mission, and we'll see." At least that's how he's portraying it, and I don't like the arrogance because I feel like as soon as you start getting arrogant like that and start putting yourself in that position where everyone's coming to me, if if you are on top of everyone else, they're going to see it, they're going to realize it, and they're going to come together
Yeah,
and they're going to flip it over. So
yeah.
I really like before I didn't know. I did accidentally find out the result of the next tribal a little bit ahead of time, but I didn't know what this one, and I really didn't know what direction it was going. So when I'm watching this, I'm like, I don't like the confidence or the arrogance that he has with it because, I mean, it kind of sounds douchey, but that's fine. You can do that if you
Yeah.
want. But that aside, you are not in a good enough position to do that, and the fact that you think you are, it kind of revealed itself later on, and it didn't work out too well for James in the end because
So,
he did get voted
so
out.
I want, yeah, I 100% agree of Owen's perspective. I don't think it was the reality. And I know like he's a first-hand information, like he would know. But like genuinely the way that he portrayed it, like James didn't seem like he was just like, "Oh, do my bidding and, we'll see what
Mm.
happens later on." It's a legit move. It's, "Hey, I need to make sure that somebody else has a vote placed on them. So just in case a hidden immunity necklace comes out, like I'm not the one going home because there's one vote thrown at me." Now, Owen being a little upset that he was not a part of the vote, 100% agree with. And then knowing, hey, maybe I'm on the outs, getting a little bit of paranoia, getting a little bit of that in his head. Then he goes back up to James, and that was the altercation. And then again in tribal council, they have another little altercation, and Noel has to be the one. Hey, there's too much testosterone in here. We got to separate this up because she was tired of them bickering between the two of them. And then we get to the physical tribal council where, yeah, James ends up going home because Noel put a very good plan together, stole Owen's vote, and then everybody voted for James to go home.
Yeah, yeah, and like you said, the only thing. So you were saying that you feel like uh, James was doing it strategically to be like, we need to have enough votes on that
Yeah,
side too, right?
I don't think it was malicious because even when he went to the watering hole and Owen was like, "Hey, where do what are you thinking?" And James was coy. Just flat out, he was coy. I don't disagree with that. But Owen snapped, got really upset really fast. But that's because of his perception of,
Hmm.
hey, this guy doesn't want to work with me. He's left me out
Right.
of the vote this last time. Like it didn't necessarily like I understand Owen's side of it. I don't
Right.
necessarily agree 100% of the perception.
Gotcha.
Is all I'm saying.
So, what my question is to that? So, if James is thinking about doing, if James thinking about this strategically, and he's saying, let's put a name down for Ryan, try and get a couple names there. That way, if something goes awry, we have that as a backup. And he's choosing Owen to carry that out. I think if that is the case, if that was what James was doing, and they didn't mention it, that doesn't mean it wasn't brought up during the discussion. But if that is what's going on, I feel like Owen at that point is like, okay, well then why am I not told why we're doing that? And
Yeah.
that's where the trust issue comes from. So it's like he might have had a legitimate reason to do it, but not expressing that and not communicating that, I feel like is what really set Owen off, because at that point he's like, there's I you don't trust me, and
Yeah.
you're trying to put me in harm's way and get me on as someone else's target, because now I put Ryan's name down, had no idea that was going to happen, and now I got someone else on my radar when I've already got
Yep.
everyone else on my radar. So
Yep.
I understand what you're saying with Owen's responses. Uh, they are quite dramatic in general, or at least a little bit, but I understand where he was coming from with tonight, where he's like, no one trusts me, and now he just put himself in a worse position,
Yep.
and he's upset at James for that. So, but yeah, that's and James, he's shocked, and then he's mad, and
He threw
then
the biggest temper
he did.
tantrum out of any person I've seen. I not any person, but like genuinely, he was like, I forget his exact words, but it was like, "Good luck making it that far without me,"
Yeah,
or something like that. It was
yeah,
a
something
really
like good
weird
luck getting
thing.
any further without me.
Yeah, it did not make 100% sense because I just the way he needs to understand that the game works with him going home. They got farther. It genuinely like he's upset moment.
Well,
Completely
it's okay.
understand.
It's okay to be upset about that, because even if you can
Yeah.
look and like again, I Big Brother, when they're voted out, they have a very brief interview with the person that was just voted out, and several times Julie will ask him, "Did they make the right decision voting you out?" And sometimes they're like, "Yeah." Like, I mean, everyone wants to say yes, because they want it to sound like, "Oh, I'm this big threat," and had they
Hmm.
not, then I would have come after them. But sometimes it's really like, "Well, no, I wasn't going after him." So anyone can say that. But even that being the case, even if you do, like, you understand it, you know where they're coming from, you can still be angry, you can still be pissed, but it's I don't know, it's just the way he responded. I was like, all right, like, you know
Yeah.
what's going on.
Yep.
But
And
anyway,
as he gets over there, they bring in obviously the next tribe, which that one was Cody, Ryan, Cassie, Gabler, and Jesse. They all are shocked, 100% shocked, and they actually say that much, like, "Hey." Ryan even says, when I get back, like I need to have conversations with people because he was a part of a very core alliance.
hmm,
Like what happened there? Because I believe it was Carla, Ryan, James, and Cassie who were all on the original Coco.
right,
And like I'm sure that was a big alliance going in. Like they had four, and everybody else had a lot less than that.
yeah, yeah. So it was a big one. Okay, so
It was a
sorry,
big one, all right.
it
Yep, yep.
was,
That's
yeah. I was
so
totally listening to you, and
yep. And so
not
everybody comes in. I'm just
everybody dies.
yes, I digress. Um, the big thing that I took from this last one was genuinely it was gonna be between Ryan and Cassie, and Cassie. When I saw the montage, like obviously that means that there is going to be an
Yeah.
issue with her, And because of how sweet hers was, the second they played it, I knew she wasn't going home. Because they did the same thing with Ryan a couple episodes ago, because he's the one that couldn't walk and all that. And like
Mhm.
they pull on your heartstrings, for goodness sake. Pull on them, pull on them, pull on them. And the only thing I had from this one was James and Ryan were the two that I like genuinely. Hold on, I actually have it on our list of your pick last week was physically James. My pick 2 weeks ago was Ryan. We're getting worse
Yeah,
because
we are.
your pick, your and my pick from the very beginning was Carla and Owen. We're doing fantastic.
Yeah,
Why did
yeah.
we change our votes?
I don't
Because
know.
for goodness sakes, we're getting worse.
Yep, we are. Yeah, it's like I said from the beginning, Ryan really put himself in that position, and for
Yep.
me, I kind of saw like the moment he started saying, "Just tell everyone it's me," and no one else wanted to, like, straight up did not want to do that,
Yeah.
and were fighting against it, and
Yep.
then he was still pushing it, and it put him in the position where I'm like, you don't want people to like, you don't want that going on, because there have been
Yeah.
several times where the vote does actually flip on you, and you're actively encouraging that and
Yep.
allowing it to happen. And ever since he pulled that, like up until that point, I really liked him.
Yep.
But after he did that, I was like, that's such a nonsensical move that I can't excuse it. And I just continued to see more and more. So he was really confident that uh, Cassidy was going to be the one going out. And again, like I said before, it only takes one small thing for someone to come after you, and
Yep.
it wasn't the biggest thing in the world. Had he actually handled it really at all, he would have been able to get past it, at least potentially to the point where you're not the first thing that she thinks of when she's thinking about someone going out. Like her whole game at this, like up until this point, has been, I have to get Ryan out. That is literally what her
Yeah.
game has been. So
Yeah.
she had the numbers, and yeah, I mean he was a threat, and you know Cody and Jesse were right on board because they wanted to build their new set around them, and he wasn't a piece of that.
I do want to just add as kind of our final remarks for the physical episode. I was wrong about Ryan, and it was very much telling in his final confessional after the episode had aired, where they get to have their 30 seconds or whatever. He physically said that he could have gone farther and could have helped other people win the game. And that was really telling because James was like, well, they got me out now because otherwise it would have been really hard to get me out later.
Right.
James was playing the game to win, whereas Ryan was playing the game to help somebody else. And that was really telling in Ryan. I thought he was a game player. He was a challenge guy. Obviously, but he made it. I mean, final eight. He made it to the final eight. That's a good milestone. If you get to play the game, final eight is where you want to aim for. Obviously, you want to win, but final eight is a good marker.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, what I feel like you're at a different stage once you get to jury in general.
Yeah,
Merge, and because again, it's kind of offset, still kind of group merge and jury portion together. But especially jury, because you still have an influence on the game. You still have an influence on, uh, what's going to end up happening, and you can still control that narrative too. I mean, if you're still wanting to have some aspect of feeling like you're in control the jury and try and navigate it to your vote. And I mean, they're not hurting from being there. They get treated pretty well and a little bit incentivized. So, top eight's pretty good. It's always a sting if you're not top three and the winner, but regardless of when you go out, it's gonna hurt. But it does show ability. I want to see a little bit smarter
yeah.
moveset.
No,
So
100% agree.
All right. What else you got?
MVPs, I already have
Oh yeah,
mine written
MVPs.
down, so I would love to know your MVP.
I went first last week.
Well, I'm not going first this week, so
I
I
went
already got
first
mine
last week.
written down. All right, fine. Simple enough. He's been in the top two of every single challenge since individual immunity. It's got to be Cody. Set himself in a very good place. Still has a hidden immunity idol in his pocket, even though it is with Jesse currently. I saw Mad said that Jesse has an idol that no one knows about. That is 100% correct. He's in a good spot. He's got Jesse. It's a Jesse and Cody twosome. I said Jesse yesterday, so or sorry, last week, and so we're gonna go with Cody this week.
Hmm. Do you want to do one per tribe since there were two vote outs this week?
Sure, go
I was
for it.
I was gonna say that, and because we always go back and forth at the end.
Yeah.
So I'll go over my first one, and then I'll let you think about yours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, my MVP of the week is going to be I'm going to go with the first one, which is Noel. The sheer no, I don't know, man. The way she pulled that off, I was really impressed, and it was
Very good move.
it
Yeah,
could have been
I
it could have
agree.
been a tough sell. It wasn't, but it could have been. It was for Carla, and had Carla not flipped, we potentially could have seen Sammy not flip, which would have ruined everything. So she really pulled Sammy in and playing that whole thing out. He had no idea. And had he had even the slightest whiff, he knew she had that. So he was going to take that from her and use it against her. So the timing, the way she played it out, and like I said before, not getting too nervous and scared beforehand. And getting too jumpy with it. She timed everything right. I'm really impressed with her for that one. So yeah, that's my number one. Have you come up with someone yet for number two?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, honestly, that is a very good pick. I do love the gameplay. I just we're getting to the final eight, and I really think if she's not out next week, she's out the week after. Like genuinely, they and she's gonna win the game if she goes any farther. Just flat out,
I
she's
will say
winning
this point.
this
I will say
game.
this point. The only thing I will say about that is I don't disagree. I still stand by everything we've mentioned about the subject. However, I do feel like at this point, for me personally, I don't even remember that she is an amputee
Right.
until it's like visually there. Even watching her in some of the competition, sometimes it doesn't stand out to me at all anymore. And I feel like for them, they're kind of in that same boat, and that's honestly something that I hadn't predicted. And so I think that it is a possibility. I'm not saying it is. Like I said, I still stand by what we suspect, but I do think it's a possibility that when you get to that point, even though she definitely will be mentioning that using that as a selling point, I
Yeah.
still feel like some people will be able to separate it a little bit easier now, actually getting to know the player. Because at this point, I mean, if she continues the momentum she's on right now, and she wins, I think she deserves it. Uh, I mean, it depends on who the final three are. You have
Yes.
it depends on who the final three are, but I don't think that you could say you're only giving it to her because of her story. I think
Agreed.
that she's got more on her resume now that it could justify it. So I don't disagree that she is still big at risk. I just don't know if it's in the forefront of their minds right now, as much as it's going to be if she does make it to the final three.
I think it will be after tonight. Like
I
I
think so.
think it'll be in the forefront in their brain of like she hadn't made a move yet. And that's why I was like, this is the
That's a
perfect
good
time.
point.
This is the perfect time. She
That
hasn't
could
done
kind of
anything.
trigger that.
Now she's done something. I think if it's not next week, it's the week after.
Yep.
But I don't disagree with it. She is a valid MVP for this week.
Gotcha.
My MVP from that side, honestly, it's Carla,
Carla.
and not for the reasons that you think. Because Carla was really told what to do this time. Um, it's mostly because she won the challenge. She was able to kind of skip through this next one. And because she was not necessarily told or not necessarily in the lead of the vote, she set herself up for next week to honestly be like she's going to be on the right side of the numbers
Yep.
because she wasn't this week, and
Yep.
because of how voting blocks work, they're not going to see her as a big threat. She still has a hidden immunity idol in her pocket. Like, and both of my picks did win the necklaces this week. Like,
Hmm.
genuinely, like it was their week, but I think it's also their game to lose.
Yep. Nope. I don't disagree. Yeah. And then from the second group, I keep having to go back and remember who's in which group specifically.
Cody,
Um,
Ryan, Cassie, Gabler, and Jesse.
Yep. I not to sound too copycat, but I do have to agree with Cody. Part of me wanted to uh, give it to Cassidy because I think that just on the sheer fact that she was able to accomplish her goal, because personally I don't think that Cody was completely sold on it. I think it did take some persuading and to get that going on that front and actually accomplish that. I was pretty impressed by. But I do agree. I do agree with you and with Cody
Yeah,
and I just overall I think he's in a better position than she is. So even though she might have been more impactful tonight overall, I think he's in a better position. So that's why I have to give it to him. But yeah,
yeah.
so that's where we're at tonight. Uh, we're gonna go ahead and start wrapping this up. I know you had to get out early, so did I, and we both went overtime. So that's awesome. Any closing statements?
No, I really like look for next week for Noel to be out. That's my prediction. For straight up, I'm actually gonna write that down in my notes
Well,
for
we
right
had a red
now.
herring because the preview was talking about Jesse and Cody they were really putting emphasis on
Yeah,
them. So that's
yep.
that's not happening. At least not the way they want us to think it is.
Yep.
So
And
yeah,
the other
she could
thing
definitely be
is
hot right now.
we got to clip that, send it to Russell, and
Yeah,
see if he adds us at
I'll
Dak Chats.
I'll try here in the next few days and clip that out. I'll do that. We'll post it as a featurette on the channel.
Whoop whoop.
All right, we'll talk to you guys later. Hopefully, we'll be back Wednesday. If not, we'll definitely be here by Thursday, and we'll cover next week's episode. In the meantime, everyone have a good night. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time. Bye.